Kane, one interesting aspect, obviously, was Taijuan Mullen had 2.5 sacks. I don't think he had a sack last year. I mean, what makes him, such a good, I guess, blitzer slash tackler in those types of situations? I mean, it seems like he's going for ankles and legs all the time. But I mean, what makes him good in those situations where you send him?
Well, I think to me, a guy that is crafty and explosive. He blitzes about 2 inches off the ground, so he's hard to pick up. And that can always be a difficult thing as well when you play low and fast and you find creative ways to get in the backfield. Obviously, from that Husky, he calls it the nickelback position. He won't call it the Husky. It's the nickelback for him. But that position for him, we can get him more involved in our rush games. And so it just allows us to be a little bit more creative with him.
All right, Peegs.
Yeah, following up a little bit on that, having corners that can cover man-to-man, it seems like you've got as good a group as you can have almost with Mullen and Reese and Jalen Williams. Just what does that do for an offense, for a defensive coordinator's freedom to go with things?
Well, it's a great question, Peegs, and honestly, I think a lot of people overlook that of our defensive production on third downs in particular last week. It allows you to just to be able to do more things than just play zone coverage. And so when we pressure, we were able to mix some of the mans and the zone concepts. But when we played man, we were on them and we stayed on them. And to me, a lot of credit to the takeaways that we got and certainly the sacks and just simple pressure that we got on the quarterback pretty much all game. Is a credit to what those guys are doing on the back end. Certainly they're gifted, but their skill is really honed in right now. And they're doing a good job of communicating with each other off of rubs and picks and some of those things as well. And so I feel like we're in a good place in terms of what we're trying to get accomplished from a man standpoint.
Paul and Zach.
Hey, Coach, when you look at Michigan and it's first-year quarterback Joe Milton, what are some things that stand out to you after 2 weeks, and what's your thoughts on your secondary going up against an offense that threw for 300 yards last week?
Yeah, I'm pleased in a lot of ways where we are. I think to me there's a fine line of you want to acknowledge the things that you do well and praise the things that you've done well to this point. And yet be relentless in the detail of fixing things that need to be fixed. And so there's some things that I'm excited about in our pass defense. And certainly there's some things that we got to continue to evolve as the season goes, right? The more things that we put on film, always, right, you're gonna give more data for the offense to look at and for them to try to expose. And so we got to adapt and adjust as always in games, and I think we have players that can do that. Looking on to Joe Milton, I think, you're talking a big body that does have the dual threat ability. He can make all the throws on the field. I think he's getting better as a decision maker. And to me, the name of the game nowadays is quarterbacks that can extend plays right with their feet. Obviously, we have one of the perfect examples of that in Mike Penix over the last couple of weeks here. But I think Joe Milton is a player that can extend plays with his feet and go, get the first down when he needs to and all those things. So for me, that will be a challenge that honestly we've just grown accustomed to. Seems like every quarterback nowadays, they can do something with their feet.
Well, and a follow-up, if I can, I was going to ask, how much does it help that that's what you've seen the first 2 weeks, albeit, different quarterbacks, but ones that can get it done with their arm and their legs?
Well, again, right, it's great to see those things, right? And then at the same time, there's things that we have got to do better in. I thought containing the quarterback week 2 to week 1 was significantly improved. And this will be another challenge for us in similar ways that we've got to adjust and adapt. And so each week, the challenge is still the same, right? Covering their people and containing the quarterback. If you can get pressure on him, that's where you have situations like what we had the last couple of weeks here, where we force some poor throws and create takeaways and sacks off of that. And so to me, that will be the challenge against a big old joker. That's a big quarterback.
All right, Zach, then Jim.
Yeah, Kane, I guess following on a lot of the questions about DBs, I can remember back in the spring before everything kind of shut down, you talking about the faith you had in some of those guys to be playing man defense, and even moving a guy like Jamar. I know Raheem's hurt, but moving Raheem back to free safety because you thought that could enhance your coverage skills. I know it's 2 games in. I know everything kind of got corrupted in terms of preparation by the way the offseason went, but at least at a basic level, is this kind of what you envisioned from this secondary in terms of being able to put so much trust in those guys that it lets you get really creative with how you bring pressures, where you bring pressures, what you do with your linebackers, that sort of thing?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's all encompassing. I mean, I'm pleased with where we are as a man coverage team, and frankly, it was something that was a bit of a concern, just how few of reps that we got. You think about in the summertime, all those reps that they get in one-on-ones and pass skill player practices, and we didn't get any of those things. And then as we get into our fall camp mode, right, there's so many things to get done, and sometimes you're trying to get man coverage work, and other times you're trying to get a lot of other things done. And so we didn't get near the volume of reps that we normally get. I thought our guys did a great job of maximizing that and taking advantage of it. Credit Brandon Shelby and KCT Garden and Jason Jones. I mean, they harp on it so much in their individual. But I will say the other thing that we focused on was schematically changing things up enough to where we are not in man coverage as much. And so it is being able to play some zone coverages, being able to mix the windows out on the perimeter has been effective for us. And that has made our man coverage even more effective because we're able to change those windows. I thought at times we were a little too man-oriented, and we had some great pressures and great blitzes, but the ball was coming out before we could get there, and the offense knew what we were in. And so, obviously, as we looked at that in the offseason, we had to do a better job schematically, and I think it has made our players' production better when we actually are in man coverage.
All right, Jim, then we'll wrap up with Tom Brew.
Hey, Kane, I asked Nick about if he was up to a point to where they could more game plan for their opponent rather than implement the offense, which, of course, it's tougher offensively than defensively. But do you feel that maybe you're at an advantage right now with the teams not having the offensive practices they've had, and you can kind of get out in front of them defensively, schematically, and game plan for them?
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest with you, it's a little bit hard to think that way with you see the offensive production all over the country right now, that in any way defensively we can get ahead of anybody. I do think this, all right, the way we teach defense around here. First, we teach our concepts. So we don't just teach you, here's what the free safety does in cover 4, here's what he does in cover 2, but we teach them what are we trying to accomplish within the concept of this coverage. What is cover 2? What is cover 4? What is man free? And where are the issues within those coverages? And I think that's a big piece of it, teaching our players where the issues are and what we can do well out of those things. The second thing is we teach our players situational philosophy. So obviously, right, third and medium is going to be played completely different than first and second down, right? Red zone is going to be played totally different than a 2-minute situation. And so understanding those situational concepts and how we play our concepts within the situation is important. But to get to your point, now that the season is in, right, and now that we have taught our concepts, we've taught our situations, we spend most of our time on offensive recognition during the season. And so week to week, our players understand what we're trying to do. I think we're executing in a good place 2 games in. To me, it is about recognizing formations, anticipating the situation, and reacting a little bit faster because you know where the offense is about to go.
All right, go ahead, Tom. Last one.
And it's the wrong week to ask my first question, so I'll ask my second one. In watching film with the linebackers and such, they seem like all across that board there, they're all really playing at a high level. And you talked a lot, last year, this spring, this year too, about just tackling. It just seems like for all that's going on, they're really doing a good job of locking in and making tackles when they got the opportunities. Can you talk about that linebacker group and what it's meant so far?
Yeah, I'll be honest, Tom. I think that's I think you're on the right track there. To me, I was very excited about this week and the way that we produced in their run game, partly because I was so nervous going into the game plan. If you think about it, from what we do and what we've gone against, we haven't seen a lot of gap schemes. And obviously that's, we call gap schemes anything that a puller, guards moving, people kicking out and blocking down and doing all that type of stuff. And so I thought Rutgers was very multiple in their run game, and we saw a ton of gap scheme versus Penn State, who didn't run any gap scheme. And obviously some of our offensive system as well, we run a lot more zone concepts. So we just didn't see many of those things. Even going back to the bowl game against Tennessee, that's not really what they did. So it had been a long time since we had seen that many different style of runs going into one game plan with a very short amount of time to get ready for them. And I was very pleased with all 5 of our linebackers that went in and played in the game, their ability to execute. We actually didn't have as much production out of the room as what we did a week ago, but we were sound in what we were trying to do. Obviously, there were a couple of mistakes there, but I thought for where we were in week 2, seeing that for the first time in, almost 10 months, I was pleased with their production and just their ability to lock in and play with discipline.